Welcome to H-Town Takeover. I'm Albessa and I'm joined by my colleagues.
David Skilton,
Carlos Quevedo,
Renato Atilano,
and Joey Martwood.
And we are here to discuss some of the hot topics that are going around the sports world. So for our first topic, there's a lot of discussion concerning the NCAA and players getting paid and the student athletes participating. What do you guys think?
Okay. Well, first to start off, I know that that's a really hot topic right now. Players getting paid, a lot of people see it, these students are getting the opportunity to go to school and to get an education, and it's being paid for while they're in school, so they don't have, they shouldn't be paid because they, are already getting such an awesome opportunity. But, in my own personal experience, however, I know a lot of athletes and what they have to go through while they're going to school. They do have their scholarships and they do have, all of their school being paid for, but all of their living expenses that they have outside of that, they have a hard time surviving because they don't have extra money. So a lot of these students, they don't, come from a wealthy background and they don't have parents to help them out with school. So them getting this opportunity is just for them to play football. They can't really afford the rest of the expenses that come with college, and more so, they don't even have the option to get a job if they wanted to. You know what I mean? If they wanted to try and have a job outside of football, that's not even possible for them. For people like us, we're able to try and support ourselves and to survive by having jobs, but their job is football and all their workouts and all their meetings and all their practices and everything like that. So I personally believe that the players should receive some amount of money per semester. It doesn't have to be, thousands of dollars we're talking about here, but anywhere between the likes of $500 to $800 maybe a semester, just so they can do normal things like, get a haircut, pay for their gas money to go, be able to get some groceries and stuff. So, that's pretty much my take on this topic.
I think that, the biggest thing is the National Labor Relations Board, when Northwestern, the football players tried to unionize there, they ruled that they cannot unionize because they're not employees of the university. Northwestern said, well, they're football players. We are employees because we work for the university. We bring in all this money for the university through revenue and stuff like that. I don't agree with that. I do agree that they should. The cost of living that they get through their scholarship should go up. It shouldn't be minimal because these guys, they're having to do things totally different than a college student or they're practice every day. They're then they've got their school hours they have to, their mandatory study hours they have to do, and they live a totally different life than any other college student, and it's harder, and the cost of living that they get through their scholarship should that money should increase, but I don't think that they should be considered employees of the university and get paid as employees of it. They should just increase the level of their scholarship.
Exactly. No, I'm on the same page with you. They don't need to get paid hourly in my view, because they're not technically doing a job. It's just that's what their life is their sport. So, they don't need to be getting an hourly pay from the university or something like that. But, a stipend that's set aside for them each semester, that to me that totally makes sense, you know what I mean? So
well, I'll be the devil's advocate here. I believe that in a way students should not get paid because it's just NCAA is so big. There's so many schools. So you guys telling me a quarterback, for example, from Oklahoma or a quarterback from Alabama is going to get paid the same as a third-string quarterback from Boise State. So how exactly are we going to regulate this? Because at the end of the day, everybody's an athlete, student athlete. So I believe that it's just too complicated. There's so many conferences. There's so many schools are bigger than other schools. Like for example, the Alabamas, Clemson. You can't compare them to little schools like I said, Boise State. So I don't know how it really will work if everybody's gonna get the same. I understand some students play, some don't play, I guess. So I just believe that at the end of the day, to really regulate that is gonna be extremely hard, and I just think it's not gonna work. The best thing they're doing is giving them their scholarships, and if they perform and if they do right, then the next step would be the NFL, correct? And if not, then at least they could fall back on that degree and they could work on that. At least they're getting something. I understand. I agree on maybe giving them more, like he said,
Benefits.
for example, increase maybe their scholarship. But besides that, it's just too complicated, I think, too.
I do see your views on that. I mean, there's a lot to take in whenever it does come down to this, because I mean, you've got D1 schools, D2 schools, D3 schools that have scholarships.
I mean, not only that, cost of living expenses are totally different. In Austin, it's a lot more expensive to rent an apartment than it is in College Station or in Lubbock, Texas. Lubbock, Texas, like $1, I'm pretty sure, to rent out.
Yeah, that's totally true. And then not to mention, you do have the different sports. You know, you've got football players, and then you've got, you know, the shot put guy, that doesn't put in as many hours as.
But football guys are on full scholarships. Track and field guys usually are not on full scholarships.
That's a good point.
But this could open the door for them to get it.
Yeah.
So
now, as for what you're saying about, you know, the quarterback from Alabama and the third string that's at Midwestern State or something like that. Now, I mean, in their defense, like, even though they may not bring in as much revenue and have as much popularity for the university, say as the starting quarterback at, you know, Alabama, Texas, they still have to put in the same amount of time as those guys do. It may not be fair, you know, that they're not bringing as much, they're not as big of an asset to that team, you know, but they are still at all the meetings, they're still at all the practices.
That could affect the team too.
Well, heck, look at Cardell Jones. He was third string quarterback and won a national title for Ohio State.
That too. You never know what's going to happen. You know what I mean? You can have a third string running back. Shoot, U of H's running back just came into the game on Saturday, and he ended up winning the game for us. You know what I mean? So it's hard to establish, you know, whether it should be, you know, first stringers that maybe get more money, but that's a whole nother topic of, you know, who brings in the revenue for the college. So I mean, like, but I definitely understand what you're saying.
If it happens, I think we're years away from it, because it's just too much to regulate, too much to break down, too much divisions.
Yeah, I don't think it'll happen with
But when you talk about paying NCAA athletes, we're talking about football and basketball players, right? So if you pay them, you have to pay everyone else. You have to pay everyone else. That, you know, that's what Title IX says. And should we pay them? Should we not pay them? Who knows? They say it's a $6 billion industry, you know, and they're the people that are creating that wealth. They don't get to participate, and you know, they don't get any of that money. So.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I understand what you're saying. I mean, this would have to be. It would definitely take time. I mean, obviously, like, it's something that would need to be, you know, just like one of our topics that we'll talk about, you know, coming up, like the football playoffs. You know, it's something that's going to take time in order for us to implement. It's not going to obviously be something that'll.
It's not going to be right the first time you try to.
Exactly.
It's gonna take
exactly.
time.
They're gonna have to make provisions after they establish it. You know, once it gets finally implemented, you know, they're gonna have to see what's working, what's not. You know, with the different divisions, the different schools, the different sports. You know, all that stuff. So I mean, but I don't know. I'm just saying, overall, for me, I definitely do feel like college athletes. You know, whether it be the shot put guy, you know, for the team, or for the track and field team, or, you know, the first string quarterback at U of H, you know, I think that they need something to help them be able to live while they're going to college, you know.
Are we all in agreement that they're not employees of the university, though, when they're on scholarship?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest thing that we look at here, you know, when you talk about how are you going to do it fairly, is every scholarship has the same amount of cost of living to it, no matter if it's a 20% scholarship or a full scholarship, you know. I had a buddy who played baseball at A&M, and he was on a 35% scholarship, and he paid the rest of the way. But his room and board was covered under a scholarship, just like a football player's room and board was. I think that you can keep that the same. It's just said baseball player is going to pay more academic tuition than the football player is going to pay.
Yeah.
And that's the difference there, really. So to me, it's not getting paid, it's increasing their benefits more than it is getting paid.
Like balancing out.
Yeah, balancing out. I mean, because you think about it, they work. I mean, it's not work, but they're working every day in practice, and that shows up in the game, and fans come to the game, and they create revenue, and so, I mean, they're bringing money to the university. They're driving sales of concession, of tickets, of merchandise, things like that, and they're not seeing any of that money coming.
The money's there.
Yeah, the money is definitely there.
Yeah.
So if they could just maybe, you know, reorganize the way they spread the money, like I said, through scholarships. That's the best way. I mean, to get paid at the end of the day.
Yeah, but
just too complicated.
Some people say they should get paid because like football and basketball players, they get injured, and once they get like severely injured, their scholarship gets terminated, and then they're stuck with the hospital bill that they have to pay themselves.
Well, that and then this huge task of going into college that they were riding on that scholarship, they're like wiped out now. They're taking on all of a sudden something that they couldn't handle in the past because they had that athletic ability, And I mean, you could say I'm a little bit biased about this subject just because I know a lot of college athletes, and I've, from high school, like I see what some of my friends from high school have dealt with, being college athletes, like having trouble being able to just scrape up some money to go get some Taco Bell or something like that, it's tough for them, So I mean, I don't know. So.
Okay, so on that topic, we can actually go ahead and transition into the U of H. The U of H football players and how their season's going and how their resurgence into the to the AP polls now. What do you guys think about that?
Heck of a win for them on Saturday night. Getting down early and then coming back to Memphis, losing Gray Ward Jr. And the backup quarterback having to come in and basically take over. I tell you what, Tom Herman, that guy can take a backup quarterback and do anything with it. I mean, look at Ohio State. Braxton Miller went down, and then J.T. Barrett came in. J.T. Barrett went down. Cardell Jones comes in, and they win a national title. I mean, crazy. Hey, Tom Herman. U of H fans are lucky right now. I'll say that.
We really are.
That there's something special about the guy, and he's been begging for fans to come out, and they finally showed up Saturday night. It makes me think maybe he'll stay a little bit longer. I don't know, but this is a special season for the Cougars so far.
Yeah, and I mean, so basically we're talking about U of H becoming a powerhouse, right? Becoming one of these top teams, expanding into one of the Power 5.
Attention.
Yeah, becoming the Power 5, one of the Power 5 conferences. I'm kind of mixed on both sides with this, to be honest, because part of me feels like U of H is going to have a difficult time, really becoming a bigger school. We do have, the student base that supports something like that. We do have the academic, the fact that we're a Tier 1 university in Texas.
Are you referring to competing against different conferences? Is that what you're going?
No. I'm saying like for us to be able to grow, because right now we are in, we're in the American Conference. Yeah. We're the top team in the American Conference, and we're the only ones that even kind of have a shot of possibly playing a playoff game. But the matter of the fact is that's not really going to happen for us this year, and I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon at all for us. I mean, we're doing great this year. We're undefeated. We had a big win on Saturday. We've done everything that we can to try and make ourselves grow as a university and move into a bigger conference. But U of H, there's a lot of problems within U of H that I feel like we're not going to be able to. For example, we have Herman right now. Herman is doing a great job with U of H, but
yeah, we can't fill any seats.
Yeah,
only one game that had record
exactly
40,000 attendees.
And what happens if Southern Cal or South Carolina comes calling Tom Herman, can pay him triple the salary he's making now?
Exactly.
There goes Tom Herman.
And he's going to be in an SEC conference right there, which is every coach's dream. I mean,
he's
Big
already
12,
boomer
Big
for
10.
South Carolina. I personally believe that he's the key of all this football program. If we're able to keep him, we already had a good season. I'm pretty sure if we play our cards right, they'll be undefeated. The way that every teams are losing here and there, I think we could finish top 10. And in 1 year, top 10, we're pretty close to that playoff. We'll talk about that expansion later because now it's 4, and if it's 8, if we keep with Herman, we see the recruits coming, they stay in Houston, build that program up 2-3 years down the line. They finish the same season like this, they'll be in that playoff.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. But here's the thing, though. Herman, I can almost guarantee that Herman is not going to be here after this year.
I agree with you.
He's not going to be here. As much as, as great of a job that he's doing, as much as we want him, as Houston students to stay here, he's going to be gone. It's just like, Sumlin going off to A&M. The last undefeated season that we had, and any chance of making ourselves, a better name, Sumlin got taken up by A&M the next year. And same thing with Brawls whenever we had him.
Yeah.
You know,
The
so I
program went
mean,
down.
I honestly don't see U of H being able, because first off, when U of H started with football, we didn't even have our games here. Like, we have a distance fan base, you know. We are fans, but we don't have, like, you know, you brought up earlier, we don't have enough attendance at our games right now. And one of the biggest issues with that is how U of H football started off. We didn't even have games on our campus until I think it was 1998 that they started.
Herman made a statement on an email saying that he wants to sell out the stadiums. So why would he stay when he could go to the SEC? Sold out stadium.
Well, I mean,
Exactly.
he talked about it. You know, South Carolina has already been rumored for that job. South Carolina is 3-7 this year, I think, and they've sold out every home game already. Still, you know,
Exactly.
they've lost
They have
their
a
coach.
loyal fan base.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying though. We have, it's not particularly, it's because we had such a distance fan base. Like, whenever they first started playing football, they were playing at, I think it was the Astrodome for a little bit. They were playing at,
NRG.
yeah, they played. We haven't really had a setup. We do have, TDECU now that was built just not too long ago. But I mean, we haven't had the ability to grow that strong fan base, and we're not going to be able to. It's going to take some time. It's going to take multiple years of us having seasons like this for us to sell out games. Right. Not to mention the area surrounding U of H. You know what I mean? Like that, it's hard for us to sell out games whenever we have a campus that's located in the area that it is. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's always going to be a constant struggle until we can kind of clean up the area that's around U of H, which is a hard task.
Point on that, tailgating is such a huge part of football.
Yes.
And going to games, and it's hard to convince somebody to come down in this area and tailgate.
Yes.
Just because the area around it is not great. And I think that U of H needs to do more community outreach to help this area become a little bit nicer and a little bit more keen to the eye, so that people don't fear coming down here and don't. I mean, night games down here, and you don't park. If you don't park in the stadium garage or the lot right next to it, you almost fear sometimes walking back to your car after the game.
Yep.
And so I think that if U of H, if the Cougars want to continue this, even if Tom Herman does leave, it can continue. You can hire another coach out there that can do what Herman, maybe not to the extent, but you can still go 10-2, 9-3, and still have good teams, good seasons every. But U of H has to pour money into the community and pour money into the program to continue the success, and not just think, oh, we're going to continue to hire offensive coordinators to come be our head coach and he's going to have the same success. It's not going to work that way.
You don't build a program that way either.
No.
Exactly. And I mean, to play the other side, I will say that if we do, the best chance that we do have at expanding, we do have a small possibility, I think, of possibly joining the Big 12. Because right now the Big 12 only has 10 teams. They're not the Big 12 like they used to be, because they had teams leave. And
it's got to take a couple of years, though. U of H has to show that they're serious about, TCU, after Colorado and Nebraska left, the Big 12 could have brought them in, but TCU the Big 12 waited a couple of years till A&M then left and Missouri left. But they could, for TCU to show that they were relevant continuously. And, you look at TCU now, they're all top in the Big 12 in football, or one of the top programs. Their baseball team is really good. They're continuously always trying to get to Omaha. The basketball team is getting better. And so it helps. Moving to the Big 12 would help, but you have to show first seriously as an athletic department that you're serious about bringing in revenue and bringing a serious program over a 5 to 10 year stretch.
The product.
Yeah, you got to be consistent.
I agree. I'm just saying, on the flip side, like, they do have, like, Houston has like a history with the Big 12. We've played Texas, we played TCU, Baylor, Texas Tech, when we were in the Southwest Conference. And if they were to like join the Big 12, they kind of already have, I wouldn't necessarily say, state rivalries with these teams, but they have history with these teams. And these teams have even showed interest with playing Houston on a regular basis. Like, I came across this article that was talking about how Charlie Strong wouldn't mind, having games in Houston, just because Houston, with A&M leaving to the SEC, that allows Big 12, like Texas, to really be a Big 12, even though SEC is the powerhouse that it is, the Big 12 is able to kind of maybe like engulf the Texas, colleges, you know what I mean? So he wants to be able to come to Houston to be able to, play games here. At least that's from what I'm understanding in interviews and stuff like that. He's shown an interest in it, you know.
So I don't know if he'd want to do that this year. They're not very good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know about that.
Probably destroy them pretty quickly.
Definitely, but I mean, it's definitely we do have a lot of things that are going against us to make us be able to grow, you know, and in that way. But I mean, it's the hardest thing is going to be keeping a coach that wants to stay here because of all the circumstances surrounding U of H, you know. If we can get a coach that would stay loyal to us, like if Herman is able to stay here, say for the next 2 or 3 years, you know, it's a very real possibility.
Something, like I said before, something that really matters to him is filling the stadium.
I think he likes it here. I think he likes it here and he wants to be here. But I think he also knows what's better for his career.
Of course.
And so I think that he's almost torn. Is he likes it here? He likes Houston. Texas is a great recruiting hotbed for him, and he could turn U of H into a powerhouse.
And he's delivering. He's making a good
Okay. Well, on to the next topic, though. You kind of touched on it a little bit earlier about expanding the playoff picture. Are you for or against it, or what do you guys think?
I'll let one of y'all start this one off.
Or
I'm still trying to get my thoughts together.
okay.
I'll go ahead.
All right.
For now, I think I'm for it. I do believe 8 teams is probably right, but at the end of the day, there's always going to be that extra team that always deserves it and is not going to get in. The 9th team, or for example, this year's going to be the 5th team that's not going to make it. I don't think it changes. It's not going to change so much. There's always going to be that debate. That's what I'm trying to say. There's always going to be those few teams that should have made it but didn't make it. I do believe 8 teams will be more interesting. As you can see, last year the 4th team actually won it all, which was Ohio State. So it's possible that the 6th seed or the 7th seed make it. More teams, more schools will be involved, more ratings, more revenue. So I do believe that it should happen pretty soon, actually.
I think the committee's goal is to get the best teams into the playoff. There's, that's as a human element of that is to look at it. Who are the best teams and get them in the playoff? Four last year. Yeah, Ohio State won the national championship. I think TCU was the best team at the end of the year last year. I mean, look what they did to Ole Miss in their bowl game. They absolutely killed them. And TCU was number 5 or number 6 actually. I think 8 and maybe even 10 in your first 2 get a bye. And you continue to play it on neutral site locations and during the bowl weeks where you're not going back to back. But I think anything beyond 8 or 10 is too much almost, because then you're just playing week after week after week after week. And
they're gonna have a difficult time scheduling those games. There's already a lot of people that are against
it.
And
then only that, I mean, your number 1 team, say it's Alabama, their fans are gonna want to go to each game. You're gonna start losing fans, or the first game they're not gonna have as many fans because they're trying to save up for the national championship game. You're not gonna have fans trying to go to every game, and you're trying to bring revenue in, 1, and 2, you're trying to get the best teams. And I think that 8 or 10. I like 10 just because the first 2 guys get a bye, and I think your best team in the nation is going to be in the top 10. No doubt about it. Your best team in the nation is going to be in the top 10. So I think, and that gives a chance for other schools like U of H, like Memphis had, or to have a shot. Can they get in the top 10 and then get in there? For most likely a team outside of the Power 5 conference is not going to get it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's not a question of if or should it happen. I think it's just when. It's inevitable. The playoffs are going to expand. Right now they've got it at 4 teams, which is not even a playoff system if you ask me. It has to at least be 8 teams, in order for it to be a true playoff system. You've got 2 teams playing each other, and then the national championship, 4. Yeah, y'all get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's not really a playoff system. And what was the whole reason that they even finally did make a playoff system? Because they were against it. People have been talking about a playoff system since like the 90s, you know what I mean? Why did they finally do it last year for the first time? Money, of course. So by them expanding the teams, all that's going to do is bring these stations that host the teams, these schools that are involved, in the playoff games, all it's going to do is bring more money all around, because it's what people want to see. It's what the crowd wants. They want to see a playoff system. There's a lot of tradition with colleges, and that's one reason that, there was a strong, opposition to having a playoff system just because of the different BCS games and the history that goes with those. But I mean, ultimately, it's going to come down to money, and that's going to make it. It's going to happen within the next 5 years. There's going to at least be an 8, or like you said, I like the idea of a 10-team playoff where you've got the top 2 on each side that have a bye week because. I mean, it's kind of like what we do already, in other professional sports.
You get rewarded for finishing
exactly.
strong. Top 2.
And you're going to have the argument there of, oh, we're number 2 and they're number 3. Who's number 2, who's number 3? But you're also going to have the same argument 10 and 11. I mean, you're always going to have an argument of who deserves to get in between 10 and 11 or on the borderlines of 2 and 3 and stuff like that. If you have it, that's going to happen. But your best team is going to be in a top 10 or a top 8. And my question, I guess, do y'all think that playoff can get too big? Do y'all think that there's a point? Could we go 64 teams like the NCAA basketball tournament?
No, definitely not. But it's funny that you bring that up. I've actually got a few points right here. So in the span of like 60 years, the NCAA men's basketball tournament has expanded I think 3 or 4 times now. Think about it. They're trying to expand the NFL season and how their playoff system is. Just about every major sport that we have, what has it done over the years? It's expanded the playing time because what do people want? They want sports. They want, ours is focusing right now on the college football playoffs, but, it's always been expanded over time. Things always are continuing to, we're trying to make more of our year take up sports because it's not going to die down. There's never going to be a time whenever they're losing revenue with having more sports. You know what I mean? So,
Especially football.
Yes, definitely. But it's going to be hard for them to do because they don't know how to. The thing that's going to be the most difficult part of it is scheduling the games. If they do have, a 10 or a 12 playoff system, 12-team playoff system, they're going to have a hard time going. They don't want college football going all the way into, say, getting close to February whenever the Super Bowl is going.
The NFL's not going like that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, so I mean that's where the line is gonna where's that line gonna be drawn? Are we gonna do 8? Are we gonna try and they're gonna have to do some trickery to try and figure out the scheduling that's gonna happen at the end of the year for these teams.
You brought up the NCAA tournament, the basketball tournament has play-in games. I think that's something that you could do. With a 10 team, and you go 7 and 10, and the winner of that plays the 2 seed, and then 8 and 9, and the winner of that plays the 1 seed. Because more often than not, 17, or you're thinking the 7th seed is going to be the 10 seed or whatever. I think you turn it into a mini tournament, and like that with play-in games, and then, so your 1st through 6 teams have technically a bye, and the 7th through 10 teams have to play a play-in game. And make them prove it on the field.
And I think we should expand to at least 8 teams because last year in 2014 there was a big upset because 2 of the Big 12 football teams, TCU and Baylor, didn't make it. They got snagged by Ohio State. So that was a big upset.
That's a good point. But another
it could
thing
happen again this year. I mean,
It will probably happen again.
The Big 12 could be left out again. If
Yeah.
OU wins out, they have 1 loss and it's to Texas, and Notre Dame wins out. Notre Dame's going to get in because they destroyed Texas, and Oklahoma lost. So, I mean, it could happen again, and that would be the Big 12's probably biggest nightmare, 2 years in a row to get left out.
Yeah, and if that does happen, then that's just gonna make even more of a point, for them to expand it. However, I mean, another thing to consider with this is if it does get expanded, and we start having, say, like you said, like a mini tournament or something like that. One thing that may suffer though is that right now, I would say, I personally think that our BCS bowl games are, I feel like it's kind of messed up the way it is nowadays. I don't feel like it's really special to be a part of a bowl game, except for particular ones, the Cotton Bowl, like the AT&T Bowl now, the biggest ones that we have. But now you've got these GoDaddy Bowl and, Fiesta, whatever. There's all kinds of, there's all kinds of bowls nowadays. Now the question is, if they do expand it, I mean, is that going to make it less exclusive to be in a playoff game? You know what I mean? If we make it something like a mini tournament, I understand it's going to create revenue, but doesn't it make it a little bit less special for all the teams that are involved?
Well, I mean, I think if you cap it at 8 to 10 teams. I don't think it does. You expand it like the NCAA tournament and just say, okay, we're starting in November, 64 teams, let's go.
Yeah.
Then, it makes it a lot less special, because the reason the NCAA tournament in basketball can get to 64 is there's so many more programs. I mean, there's only 126 basketball teams. There's like 300 and something, or 126 football teams. There's like 320 basketball teams, even more, I think.
True.
So, I mean, you have to look at the numbers to, I think 8 to 10 is as big as you can go, and after that, it's because it gets less special.
After that, you're pushing it, I
Yeah.
think. So I think 8 to 10 is probably what they're going to do, I think, within the next few years.
Definitely. Now, do y'all think that they should try to make it to where, rather than doing, a numbered system, how much more time do we have
We
left?
have about 4 seconds
Okay.
left.
All right.
so-
Well, I was gonna say, do
Wrap
you
it
think
up.
that we should try to have, like a team from each type of conference? How do y'all feel about something like that, rather than a seeding system, between them? Because that's another thing to consider too, if they try to expand it. Do y'all think that they need to try and include people from different conferences, or?
Best teams.
Just the best
I think
teams.
Just the top
opportunity
best
to get the best
Each
teams in there.
conference face each other.
Mhm.
I don't, the conference, because the Pac-12 this year could have a 3-loss team on their conference. Best teams get in. That's who.
That's true. That's true.
All right. I mean, we could talk about this all day, but we do have to wrap it up. And this is H-Town Takeover. Thanks for tuning in.